So for our runner interview, Evan and I interviewed Zach Zimmerman. He's a former OU cross-country runner. He continues to run competitively for Columbus Running Company, and he coaches track at a high school in Pickerington. We had some difficulty recording the actual Zoom call, so we have to kind of crop some videos together to make it work. With that said, our first question to him was just to kind of tell us a little bit about his background with running, as well as coaching and dealing with injuries, both as a runner and a coach. So that's kind of where the next part will start off.
Head coaching for track at the middle school that I taught at, but that's not even worth talking about. I just really wasn't program. I basically just started and ended in when I was 2 years teaching there. But I mean, when I was for cross country as an assistant coach, I was pretty much just kind of like almost just like a rabbit to run in front of the athletes, just someone that they could pace off of, kind of give some real world experience for how to compete, how to train, how to race. As for my injuries, I've only had a couple. I had a tibia fracture my freshman year in the winter. That had nothing to do with running. That was just a stupid decision on a tubing accident in the winter. And then I had a stress fracture, and again, I am not doing you guys any justice by not remembering, but I had a stress fracture in the tibia my junior year in college while at OU. Got some PT for that. I saw Dr. Weiner was on the email thread. I was hoping he would be here. I was going to ask him to speak to the where that tibia fracture was, because I honestly don't remember. She was the one that helped me do the PT. But then my latest injury was just like some knee displacement issues. My right knee got pulled to the left because of some tight muscles, and it basically just came about because I have a really imbalanced gait. I favor my right side way more than my left, so there's just a lot more impact on my right knee. But again, I went through physical therapy for that, and I've kind of strengthened up my hips, and that's not really something that bothers me today.
Gotcha. When did you have PT for your knee? The last one?
Let's see, that was in 2021.
All right.
To be fair, I did have a similar issue my senior year, my fifth year at OU, so 2019, 2020. And I went through PT with Dr. Weiner, one of his grad students at that point, and basically the same thing. And then, strengthened it, got weaker. 2021 rolls around, had the similar issue, and now I've just been, keeping more of an eye on it.
I was going to ask what your experience was like working with Dr. Weiner and going through PT for this.
Fantastic. I love Dr. Weiner. He's obviously he's a very dedicated athlete, but beyond that, he's got a lot of unique insight when it comes to like the training of hills and the just how that impacts your running overall. And he's a fantastic person. I love Dr. Weiner.
Plenty of hills down here, so.
Wow, I was there.
Gotcha. So, as a coach, can you and just continuing running after competing in college level and stuff like that, can you speak a little towards your approach towards injury prevention for you, and then also as a coach for your athletes?
Yeah. As for me, ice when needed, right? And also listening to your body, so like taking time to really like reflect and like, how do I feel before the run, how do I feel after the run, and not being afraid to take an easy day. Like there have been plenty of times, obviously I haven't had a coach since 2019, so all of my workouts, everything that I've been doing has been of my own, creation, and so there have been plenty of times where I've had a plan to do a workout or a plan to do a long run, and I've gotten up on it, done my warm-up, and been like, you know what, I'm not doing this today, taking a workout and just said, forget it, I'm doing an easy day, because that's what my body needs. Obviously icing, like I said, when needed. Usually it's just some sort of like ice cupping or like, topical ice. I should be better at stretching and mobility. It's something that I preach to my athletes. And it's something I'm trying to get better at, but it's not something that I have like a dedicated routine for. Honestly, I think that just like having that self-awareness of your own body is a huge, huge, huge thing for running, not only in injury prevention, but also like when it comes to racing.
Yeah. So, you spoke a little bit about what you do for your athletes. What is like, as far as like an injury prevention, what is like a typical run for them just on like a normal training day? How do you do like cool up, whatever, cool down, warm up, whatever, run, cool down, all that kind of stuff? How do you just kind of structure it?
Right. It's pretty much the same as any other, like, any other runner would do it. So they usually start out with like a nice, easy, like half-mile jog, come back and do some dynamics, and then we'll tell them what the workout is, and then it will basically just start, slow and fast. I'd say a regular easy day for them is, obviously we have a wide range of ability levels. So, normal easy day, anywhere from 40 to 60 minutes. And again, like I think the athletes that are, wanting to go beyond their, aware of that, like, oh, is 60 minutes mean I do everything at 9-minute pace, and so I only get like 7 miles in, or is a 60-minute run at a decent pace that I'm actually going to get some aerobic, fitness out of. Definitely, one thing I did like preach religiously to them is easy days easy, hard days hard. If our goal is an easy run, there's no excuse for finishing a run, whether it's 40 minutes or 60 minutes, and you're like, bent over, like out of breath, right? Conversational pace is what I like to tell them, right? So, if you can hold a conversation, obviously a big part of running is being able to be comfortable with yourself and your friends. And so if, we want them to be social, we want them to be goofy, we want them to be, enjoy it. So we, try and use that as our benchmark of like, okay, if you guys can have a conversation, if you guys are good, then that's your easy pace, right? But then when we come to the workout days, it's time to lock in, time to, promote that intensity, and just kind of enjoying the different days for what they are, right?
Gotcha. One other thing on that. So at the high school level, obviously, like you mentioned, you're going to have a very wide range in like ability level and skill level for the runners. How do you go about like advising the higher level people who might want to like do running on their own? How do you go about instructing them on how to do that in a safe manner?
For the more like high intensity guys?
Yeah, anyone that would really want to do anything outside of practice, I guess, running wise, like additional mileage or anything like that, if any of them choose to do so.
Right. Well, generally we wouldn't be promoting like oh yeah, go home and do another 20 minutes, right? Just because I think, our goal is, if practice takes 2 hours, then it takes 2 hours. If it takes an hour, it takes an hour, right? So we try and get them into the mindset of, okay, this is the time that we are running. From the time school bell lets out to whenever parents pick you up, right? This is when we train. Anything outside of that isn't really any running. If they want to do like cross training, we would say do that in the morning. So generally we don't promote like a doubling. Most kids aren't able to handle that at the high school level. So if they're doing anything outside of practice, it is strength and mobility. Obviously we're big on core and stretching. But then if they have the ability, like I know a lot of athletes, our coaches have, really one or two of our coaches have pools. So if they want to go cross train the pool, go cross train the pool, right? Knowing that. If they want to bike, go bike. That would generally, we would say, doing it out of practice. Nothing more than that.
Do you have them do any like strength training in the off season or anything along those lines?
We do strength training all the way from when we come in the summertime all the way through. I think we stopped doing strength training 2 weeks before the end of the season. So we are in the weight room at least 2 or 3 times a week. In the summer, it's usually just push-ups and core because we don't have access to the weight room, obviously, because we're not in school. But then once the school year hits, our coaches always come in. Again, I'm an assistant, so I don't usually come up with these workouts, but we usually have some sort of set routine in the weight room. Mostly focusing on, like I said, core, a little bit of arms, but actually, let me repeat that. It's mostly core and upper body because, if they want to lift and do legs in the summertime, that's great. But during the season, that's not really what we want to see because it's just so, they race. Once the first race goes off, they're racing every single week. So there's no, in our opinion, there's no sense in having them lift legs during the week because the effects that you're going to get from that are not going to be seen in the season. So if you're going to lift legs, it's got to be in the summer. While you're in season, if you're strength training with us, it's going to be core and upper body. Because that's generally what we see when athletes are, hitting that last half mile, their shoulders drop. They sway from side to side because they don't have that core, it's because they don't have that strength built up. So that's really what we try and hammer home with them.
Gotcha. So, in again speaking for yourself and then your athletes, how do you navigate the returning back to running after an injury and a period off where you kind of get deconditioned and that kind of thing? How do you go about returning?
So for myself, starting out slow, easy moves, right? Just building up that base again. Nothing more. If I'm doing a workout, it's nothing more than a hard lift. So 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, something like that. It really, and that really is just to kind of test the waters of fitness and see how much I lost. But starting back, I mean, like, I'll give you an example. When I was training for the Athens Marathon this past year, I took all but 2 months off after, or I should say about a month and a half off after Thanksgiving. So coming back, I did, probably just 2 solid weeks of just easy running. There was a couple times where I would do like a progressive run. So like, if I was doing a 10-mile run, I might start out at an easy pace and then end at a target pace. But nothing more than a light progression, nothing more than a hard lift. And then obviously sprinkling in some cross training, like I said, going back to like listening to your body. When you're starting back that process, it's really important to listen to your body and see what you lost in terms of fitness, because you don't want to overdo it. Things changed, starting back up to a training block and immediately getting injured can be really demoralizing. So sprinkling in those cross training bits of biking, swimming, honestly, even doing something like basketball is helpful. Just in an effort to prevent injury. And as for coaching, I'd say pretty much the same as my own. So obviously, like I said, I've never been a head coach, so I've never had to develop like a return to running plan. But as for the athletes that we do have that are coming off of injuries, they're doing pretty much the same time, or the same like time and runs and the same workouts as our running athletes would do, but they're just doing their own bike. We do have a rowing machine, which some guys like, some guys hate. We found that to be somewhat helpful because, again, it's kind of promoting that core and upper body, but you're not hammering the legs. It would really ultimately just depend on what kind of injury they were battling. If it's something stress fracture related, pretty much going to be on the bike or the water running cycle. If it's something like a torn ligament or maybe sprain, sprinkling in, maybe doing like the warm up, like half-mile warm-up, and then doing dynamics, seeing how they feel, and then putting them on the bike. But ultimately, they're going to be pretty much doing the same thing that our other athletes are doing, except for that it's going to be on the bike. So, for example, if we have like a mile repeat workout, right, they'd be doing it, but they'd be doing it on the bike. So they would be doing, what's your target goal pace per mile? 6 minutes. Okay, so for 6 minutes, you're going to ride super, super hard. Pretty much that.
Gotcha.
And then going into that, like working with high school athletes where if they're not that 3-season athlete, kind of getting them back after they may have not been training for an extended period, is it the same approach? Like once the season starts in the summer, kind of easing into it, or?
We have that a lot. Because some of the guys like to come out in the summer, and our coach really has promoted the whole idea of like, don't come in as like little clay, right? Come in a little hardened so that we can sharpen you, so that we can really focus our time while we're got our season to do what we need to do. We obviously, that is some of the athletes, but other athletes, they just show up on day one. Generally, it would be a situation where if the standard easy run day was 40 to 60 minutes, they might be doing 30 to 50 minutes or 30 to 40 minutes. If we were doing, like I said, just classic repeats, if everyone came to summer practices and the institution was doing 4 of them, they might do 2 of them. Or they might do, instead of doing a mile, they might do 2 or 3 or 4 800s, right? So just really lowering the distance, but still trying to get that intensity up. I think that's something that we try and really do, and I took this away from the program, and I'm glad it's still in the program that I coach now, is that we have to kind of train them to shift their gears, right? So we got to train them to like recognize this is my easy pace, this is my tempo pace, this is where I'm picking it up, this is like my full tilt, full sprint, like final gear sort of pace. So it's like just trying to mirror that as much as we can. but sometimes we may just have to like lower the time constraint or lower the distance, but still so they're getting that sort of that turnover.
So, speaking of moving towards kind of PT a little bit, you spoke some about PT you've had in the past for running injuries. With your athletes, is that something that you encourage if they are having injuries, or do you kind of go more to like athletic training route? How do you guys kind of navigate that?
Obviously having an athletic trainer is awesome. Unfortunately, as I'm sure you guys recognize, athletic trainers don't like the cross country team. They're almost all focused on football and basketball, so it's really difficult to get them into the training room and finding them time to talk to the trainer and develop a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, and this is unique to this year, we had 6 coaches. So we had quite a few athletes that were injured this year, and I know that some coaches developed some plans for them. We definitely want them to do physical therapy, absolutely. Generally, how we would approach it is if an athlete came to us and said, hey, I think I've got a sprain in my knee or something, right? You'd say, okay, well, go get a diagnosis, go talk to, a physical therapist, go talk to someone you trust, and then come back to us and we'll look at what they give you and we can adjust it as needed, or we're going to have you, you're going to come to practice still, but you're going to be just doing physical therapy. So to answer your question easily, yes, we do absolutely promote physical therapy. I think that it's very, very important. Because one thing that I've learned in physical therapy is we learn how many small little muscles we have in doing physical therapy. And so to get them to recognize that, oh crap, I don't just have to do bicep curls to have strong arms, right? Is super crucial. And you only learn more about your body the more you move it and the more you do things that you're uncomfortable with.
And then kind of just looping back to what your experiences have been like in physical therapy, like what did it kind of look like for you for those different injuries, and kind of just speaking on that.
So my physical therapy was almost all built around strengthening my hips. Like I said, I figured out early on that I favor my right leg a lot more than my left. And so to help absorb that impact, I was really, really focused on strengthening both sides of my hips in an effort to kind of help absorb that impact that was caused. On top of hip strengthening, working on mobility, I like to think that I'm flexible, but God willing, I'm not. So really trying to just reinforce, strengthening the hips, but then also taking time to really do a solid warm-up. So one thing I always try and tell them or ask my physical therapist, I've been to several of them. I've been to Athletico, I've been through PT at OU. Right now I'm doing it through JS Orthopedics, but that's for my shoulders, so that's not really relevant. Okay, can you guys give me a warm-up, a dynamic warm-up and a static cool-down that's going to not only get the muscle ready and get everything warmed up and working as it should be so that it can go through its full range of motion, but then also something that I can do afterwards that's going to help stretch it out, right? So a lot of hip strengthening, a lot of stability too. That's why I went and bought 2 Bosu balls, just so I can keep on doing the lunges or the squats with a Bosu ball to just really focus on that stability piece, because like I said before, there's a lot of little muscles that you don't recognize in your hips and your knees and your ankles. And so just really making sure that those are developed and would probably be my easy answer.
So, kind of transitioning from, you spoke a little about how you trained and stuff in college, but now running for Columbus Running Company, how with you, I guess first, what are you training for anything currently?
Yeah, so I got my acceptance to go to Boston in April, so that starting in January, that would be my main goal. CRC is really helpful in giving us races for free. So any race that they sponsor, we usually get free entry for. So, for example, last year before I did Athens, I ran 2 5Ks, a 9-miler. I think that was it. Yeah, that was it. So, yeah, I mean, they're really helpful in finding us, a lot of different opportunities. I'm sorry, what was the beginning of the question?
I was going to say, so how do you go about training for that stuff now as opposed to how you did before when you were running in college?
Okay. honestly no different. I really don't have an answer that would probably help other people, because one thing that I found out for myself is that I can run, whether or not I'm training for a 5K or a marathon, I can pretty much hang between 40 and 50 miles. I found out early on in college that if I jumped up to that 60, 65 mile threshold, I'm going to get injured. It happened like 2 or 3 times where I had little minor injuries, but so much so that I couldn't continue doing what I wanted to do. So I don't really probably have an answer that is going to be helpful to whoever's going to be giving these answers to, because like I said, I mean, when I was training for Athens, my max was 55 miles a week. Usually, majority of the miles came from a longer run, so 18 to 20 mile long run. Sprinkled in there, I would do a couple days of doubles, so like an easy 4 mile run in the morning, and then 6 to 8 in the afternoon. One thing that I do also really religiously believe in is a rest day. I think that a lot of runners get too in their head about, I gotta do something every single day. And I think that it's so important to give your body a time off. I mean, it's no different than when you talk to people that go to the gym regularly. They don't lift arms every single day. If you're running every single day, you are hammering those same muscles. So I always give myself a built-in day of rest, where I just don't do anything. So yeah, I mean, usually a long run, probably, to give you an easy answer, it'd probably be one long run per week, one workout, more than likely a long run continual workout. So long run continual workout, regular workout, and then just sprinkle in some easy days. Depending on the distance that I'm training for, I might double. So like I said, in training for my marathon, I'll probably end up doing at least 1 to 2 doubles in the week just to get that mileage goal. But if it's for like anything like a 5K or a 10K, probably just easy miles sprinkled in.
And then do you typically do any cross training, like biking, swimming, anything like that that's kind of lower impact?
So going back to what I said about my shoulder PT, I am no longer able to swim. I've dislocated my shoulder twice in swimming.
So the end of the video also got cut off, but he kind of just goes on to talk a little bit more about his cross training, but he hit on a lot of the major points already. So with that, thank you guys for listening.